What up? How you doing? Get my life together here. Welcome to the live. Welcome to the live. Uh, let's get it started. Let's get it started. It's hot today here in San Antonio, 100 degrees. So we're gonna try to get this in. We're talking about, is Jesus a copy? Is Jesus a copy of other Near Eastern mythologies, stories about other men? That's the conversation that we're going to have today. I was recently reconnecting, relearning, restudying a few things and things I haven't thought about in a long time. So I figured it'd be a good conversation. We talked about this on last Thursday about Apollonius of Tyana a little bit. I brought it up, said that we was going to talk about it on Monday. But Monday we had some technical difficulties. So we couldn't go live. That technical difficulty was I lost my key to the garage. Well, I didn't lose it. My wife took it. It was in the car, so I couldn't get it. So we couldn't come in here and do a live on Monday, but here we are today. So I pushed everything back. So today we're going to talk about, is Jesus a copy? Was he a real figure historically? Most likely not. So the question is, well, not. There ain't no most likely, just not. So where did the story come from? That's what our conversation today is going to be about. Where did the story of Jesus actually come from? Is he a copy? And one of the leading people that I think the story of Jesus emanates from is Apollonius of Tyana. Now I want to give a few minutes to let a couple people get on before I go over Apollonius of Tyana. I understand that most people have probably never heard of this person. And so since you haven't heard of him, I want to give a brief description, a brief conversation about Apollonius of Tyana before we start getting guests up here to see if they agree, disagree, argue the point. Is Saint Denis a real story? He was beheaded in 250. He continued preaching the Gospels while walking to his own grave. He became the French national military saint. I don't know much about Saint Denis. I'm gonna say that many of what the Catholic Church has created and called saints and the miracles that they seemingly perform. Now, some of the people legitimately were people who focused on orphans or people who focused on, like Patrick focused on going and spreading Christianity in Ireland. You have these people who did things like that. But as far as the miracle ones, the miracles that they supposedly perform, not so much. And I'm really skeptical of a lot of the early church father writings, anything that is before the 400, late 300s, 400s, 500s, anything that came before the constitution of what we know today as the Catholic Church. All that history is a little funky. So this Saint Denis in 250, I'm going to look at that with a little more of skepticism, simply because many of the things that these so-called church fathers wrote about, talked about, seem to be more of legend in order to garner more of the Roman population. Recorded in history as a normal execution, not supernatural, in year 830. It was written again, this time with the headless preacher story. See, I'm thinking 250 probably was a guy named Denis walking around preaching, got executed in 250, and then, like you saying, in 830, they create this other story about him. Started adding to the story, which is what you get a lot of with the Catholic Church and all their different little saints and whatnot. So, uh, you know, But this story of Jesus, which is so interesting that so many people believe and follow this story, not because they've done any research, not because they've did any comparative research, uh, simply because they were raised in it, they were surrounded by it. If they weren't raised in it, they were surrounded by it in their culture, in their country, and then they just added this to their belief system when they went through some type of emotional change in life. You know, you're really not into the church, but you kind of believe it because you grew up in a Western country that promotes it, that has churches on every corner, and then you go through something traumatic and you turn your life over to Jesus. If you was living in India, you might have turned your life over to Brahma or turned your life over to Allah or some other deity simply because that was your familiarity. But it's okay. When you go back and you actually do some studying, then we find people like Apollonius of Tyana. Now, Apollonius of Tyana is a very interesting story, right? Because what you have here is a first century Greek philosopher out of Turkey, so in the general vicinity, but out of Turkey, who spent time walking around through Judea. He walked around. Thanks for joining the fan club. He walked around Judea. He went to India. He went to Egypt. He studied Pythagoreanism. He studied the Brahmin teachings. He studied the Egyptian teachings. He viewed himself, as someone who was going to free man from the body. And through the mental challenges, mental studying, you go on and you achieve that level of what Christians might call Christ mind, what Christian mystics call Christ mind, what Buddhists call the Buddha head. When he was around 20 years old, now he left Turkey. He left Turkey around 15 CE. So this is during the time frame that the Jesus character would have been walking around. At age 20, he took a 5-year vow of absolute science. He had a philosophy that said that if you can't be good being by yourself, within yourself, then you're not going to be able to achieve the Godhead, right? You're not going to be able to ascend. No, Apollonius is not Apollo. So he took this silence for 5 years when he was 20 years old. And like I said, he studied under the Brahmins. Now, it is said about him that he performed miracles, that there was a Roman in Rome. He stopped the funeral procession of this young lady who was supposed to get married in a noble family. And then he touched her body and spoke some words. And then she awoke from death. Right. So he did the Lazarus resurrection. When he was in Corinth, big time Christian space. So you can imagine the Christians at Corinth would have known about this story. But when he was in Corinth, right, and he exorcised this woman who had this vampire-like demon that was inside of her. And the demon was attempting to seduce his students. He had a large following. So he went up to Corinth and exorcised this demon, this vampire demon, out of this woman, which is interesting. I mean, the Jesus character supposedly exorcised 7 demons out of some woman. Right? The Roman Empire was not fond of him. So in the same way that Jesus supposedly went before Pontius Pilate, this man went before Emperor Domitian. And I know Christians like to think that Emperor Domitian only cared about Christians, was only persecuting Christians, but Domitian was like persecuting everybody who wasn't under the Roman styles of religion. If you weren't following Mithra, Dionysus, if you weren't part of the imperial cult, then you weren't, part of his bag. So Emperor Domitian supposedly arrested him for treason, had a trial, and he suddenly vanished in thin air, in front of the whole court. And then several days later, just like in the Jesus story, he reappears to some of his followers, and some even went to the assertion that he ascended to heaven after that. And now some of his philosophy is very similar to the Jesus story. He believed in an ascetic lifestyle, not the accumulation of wealth, even though he came from a wealthy family, but a more ascetic lifestyle, foregoing the entrapments of the world and that sort of thing. Only wearing clothing that was purely made out of plant material. He was a vegan. So that was, got to cleanse the body so you can cleanse the mind so that you can reach godlyhood. He believed that there was just one supreme God. But this God was like a nameless God. Didn't have a name, wasn't Yahweh, wasn't any God, just God, just one supreme deity that didn't require rituals, didn't require animal sacrifices, didn't require incense, prayers, any of those things. That the only acceptable type of worship was to gain knowledge, human reasoning, inner moral purity was the only way that you ascend to this God. And that your soul will be reincarnated from your human soul to the immortal, energetic soul. And that you would keep doing this, reincarnating until you return to the divine wisdom. Kind of like how the Gnostics developed the idea of returning to the primordial by gaining knowledge, right? So he urged people to seek inner wisdom instead of focusing on sacrifices and the rituals of, you got to pray this 3-4 times a day and so on and so forth. Now, it's interesting about the validity of Apollonius. Apollonius was, I forgot the empress name. But there was an empress after Domitian. She wanted his letters to be gathered and for his biography to be written, his gospel to be written. The name of the guy is going to come to me in a minute. And these were written, but that's not the only claim of Apollonius' existence. There were many of the early church fathers and many of the early Christians, like Eusebius, wrote treatise about Apollonius, but didn't say that he was fake, didn't say that he didn't exist, didn't say that he didn't perform any of the miracles that he performed, but that he performed those miracles through sorcery, and that he used demonic magic tricks in order to convince people of his belief of that you should follow him. It was from the letters of Apollonius. These are letters that Apollonius supposedly had written, was utilized by early Christians to to sharpen their reasoning. They had to make copies of these letters. So through Christians copying the letters of Apollonius is how we know what Apollonius taught, what he said, what he thought about. And so you have where is it? I did find a couple of them where there was to the priest at Olympia. He wrote that the gods have no need of sacrifice. What then should one do to please them? Acquire wisdom. And as far as you can, do good to those men who deserve it. On prayer, he said that the gods, oh gods, grant me to have few things and to stand in need of nothing. That was part of his ascetic teaching, his ascetic belief. I'm going to get to some people in just a minute. When he talked about sacrifice, he said, to the supreme God, we must offer no sacrifice at all, neither light or fire, nor vow anything material, for he needs nothing, not even from beings greater than we are. We must worship him only by using the best things we have, that is the intellect, which requires no physical organ. And he wrote about other things. He wrote a lot. There's a lot of writings of his letters, parts of his letters that we have, and most, like I said, most of these parts of his letters that we have is because the Christian scribes would write these things down, copy his letters. Eusebius wrote against him and against his teachings. So it became part of what we know that exists. So it's most likely that Apollonius existed as this preacher. Did he do these miracles? No, not going for that at all. But was he a man who walked around, and is he a precursor to the Jesus story? Since many of what is said about this man is incredibly similar. I know we oftentimes like to say that, oh, these other people on the list, Asar / Osiris / Serapis, Heru / Horus, Dionysus, Mithra, Cretius, that these were the templates for the Jesus character. And although they do mirror a lot of the same, what's the word I'm going to use here? They do mirror a lot of the same motifs. You're not going to find anything that's exact. We do see that this dude, Apollonius, 1st century, very similar. Bishop Nubs.
What's up, Coach? How you been?
Pretty good.
Spreading the good news, I see.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
The freedom of the bondage of religion.
Got to do it. Got to
absolutely, absolutely.
Have you ever heard of Apollonius of Tyana?
Yes, I would agree that Apollonius would be number one. However, the Dionysus worship in Mark and Matthew and basically the Gospels is uncanny. I mean, you've got Mary Magdalene with her alabaster. You've got Jesus in the garden. You've got Jesus saying, I am the vine, you are the branches, turning water into wine. Like, there's a lot of mix. A lot of mix. And, and these Christians don't take the time to actually research these other things, to actually sound intelligent enough to have these conversations because, well, God did it.
True. I agree. And before I say something, got some Chuck McNorris on YouTube said he thought you had disappeared, so he's just want to say hey to you.
Chucky boy, I miss my Chucky boy. No, I'm over here on TikTok. I have repented from my YouTube ways. I go there generally for informational purposes only, and also the great and wise Dr. Amen Hillman. Great guy. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he translates the Bible in Greek. Like, he speaks Koine Greek.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway. That's a whole different story. But I will say that Christians, if you read, I'll close down with this. Christians, if you read your Bible and you hear us atheists or any other group talk about how, washing feet is a reference to something, if you're looking for the reference point, King David told us what washing feet is after he was done graping that young lady. He goes and tells her husband to go get his feet washed, and he indicates that he's not going to lie with his wife as his men are unaliving in the field. So we know that it's a reference. So that means that the upper room makes a whole different story. Just saying.
I'm gonna have to look that up more.
Well, I mean, hey, it's there. So don't get your feet washed, but Jesus, you might catch something.
Always something stupid.
Well, it's right there in the book.
I'm with you.
Think about it. The Dionysic worship of Dionysus, right?
Mhm.
You've got what? You've got the tool of an alabaster, right?
Right.
And an alabaster, as we know, is it's one of those.
For those who don't know, if you look up the Dionysus alabaster, it looks like a dildo. It looks like a tool.
Coach, it is clearly a medical application device, and we can know that it is that because Dionysus used pharmakia on top of the applicator device, and it had to be applicated in a vigorous rubbing action.
And we know that Dionysus, part of their rituals was to have these sex orgies in the woods. That was part of it. So
yes.
I can't say no. Speculatively, that could be a purpose of the alabaster wand that they were using. And then
we also have, I'm just pulling scripture stories. We also have that story where the 12 disciples, you remember how they went to the temple and Jesus and Peter paid the tax?
Yeah.
Well, that tax is from, where is that from? The tax is found in Exodus 30 and 13, and it's the temple tax for all men over the age of 20. And Jesus and Peter paid the temple tax. The other 11 disciples did not, in fact, pay the temple tax. So we know that they were under the age of 20, because if there's one thing that these people are going to get, it is their half drachma of silver yearly.
They're going to get their money. And we do have the story of Jesus being out there in Mark, where he's out there in the Garden of Gethsemane with a half-naked boy who then runs off naked.
Yeah.
It's very erotic.
Yep.
Maybe that's a day we should do biblical erotica. I put some stuff together for biblical erotica.
Oh, it's filled.
Like in Ezekiel when
the whole thing is filled, and the right.
Mm-hmm.
My signal sucks. Let me go.
All right, man.
Much loved, Coach. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate you. Talk to you. We had
stay free of Jesus and stay JT free.
Later. Bishop Stumpy Nubs. All right. TikTok is always giving me some crazy. Bev. Okay, I guess Bev is not there. Give it a second, because sometimes TikTok delays when a person comes on. I put if you want to come onto the show, if you're on Facebook and YouTube, it's right here. TikTok is over here. The link has been posted in the comments on Facebook and TikTok. I post that link every so often so that people can come on to the show from those. And also, before I get too far into this, let me thank everybody who's a member of the channels. Each channel has its own type of membership, whether it's a subscription holder on Facebook, a membership on YouTube, or the fan club on TikTok. Thank you very much. And thank you for the gifts. Somebody already gave me some gifts on TikTok, so I want to thank you for those gifts. Let me see. I didn't see it at the time. Well, Cherry gave some gifts. Thank you, Cherry. Hey, Cherry, how you doing? Living life fantastic. Haley, thank you for yours. So thank you, everybody who supports the channel. And when people do super chats, of course, super chats on YouTube definitely gets read and talked about. Rupert is on here. I'm surprised he didn't say nothing. We was having a conversation on Facebook, but I forgot what Rupert was what that conversation was. So Rupert, if you can remind me of what that conversation was that we were having yesterday, just for y'all edification. When y'all write, so if you write something in the comments after a video or on a video that I publish, and I publish videos almost every day, I read all of them. I don't respond to all of them. When I do respond, I don't respond. I'm only going to 1-2 responses is about it. I'm not about to have a whole text conversation. I just don't like it and don't have time for that. Bad Wolf. Bad Wolf?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Are you over 21?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Are you a believer in the Bible?
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay. So what do you have to say about the subject matter?
I'm actually, what is Jesus supposed to be a copy of?
Well, there's a list of people up there that have incredibly similar stories to the Jesus character. And each one of these stories were told either before Jesus, or the top one, the first one, was told at the same time Jesus was supposed to be alive.
And what do that supposed to mean?
That the Jesus character is an amalgamation of different characters. That there's no evidence of Jesus actually existing.
No, you can't prove that, man. You just talking. You just giving your opinion. You have no proof.
Oh no, I can prove that Jesus. So a different subject matter that I would do probably tomorrow or the day after is the fact that there's no historical evidence that Jesus ever existed.
That's your opinion. What do you mean that you got evidence of that? What are you talking about?
What's the evidence
They have the tomb where he was in. What are you talking about, man?
Which tomb? Because if you go to
What are you talking about?
If you stop talking for a second, have you ever been to Israel?
What do Israel got to do with the tomb, man?
Where do you think the tomb is located?
Listen, you don't know what you're talking about. I can clearly see that now.
Where do you think the tomb is located?
You have no clue.
Why can't you answer a question?
You tell me. I don't know, because I wasn't at the tomb. You wasn't either. So how do you know where the tomb was located?
Oh, but you just,
how do you know this?
Dude,
how do you know this?
If you don't stop just yakking, we can end this, because
I don't give a flying fuck. I don't follow you, so who cares?
Then why are you here? Why are you butthurt that you're here? Because if you knew anything, look, this dude just come on here and then. So this dude just comes on here and said, we have the tomb, that's proof. But then doesn't know that the tomb is in Israel. And because he questions, what does Israel matter? And if I'm muting you so you can keep on talking. You can keep on talking, I can keep on muting. But he don't even know what he's talking about, what Israel got to do with it. What is if you
it was 2 tombs enough, man. Be quiet.
Which tomb is the Jesus tomb then?
You said it was 2 tombs enough, man. Nobody looking at these bullshit videos you putting up, bro. You're not getting no play. That's a fact. Smoking that cigarette, man. That's all you could do.
Oh, he's real dumb because he thinks this is a cigarette. You're not getting no play. You're dumb. I guess the 75,000 people on Facebook is no play.
You probably bought them people. You probably bought. Nobody follows you. 165,000 people. What are you talking about?
I said 175
people. You're right, and you bought a lot of them. I bet you.
I bought.
You bought people. Man,
y'all hear the crashing? Y'all hear the crashing out? Y'all hear the crashing out going on? Look at him crashing. Look at him crashing. So when you go to Israel, are you going to go to the tomb that's on Mount Calvary, or are you going to go to the tomb that's the garden tomb? Which one you going to go to? Which you said that the tombs, you said you got the tombs. Which tomb is it? Which tomb is it, my guy? Is it the garden tomb? Or is it the tomb that's on Calvary? Which tomb?
There's no proof for you.
Yeah, I like when they crash out like that. I mean, he can't even have a conversation. Doesn't the Bible teach Christians that they're supposed to be able to come and defend what they believe and defend it politely? I mean, that's what your Bible tells you to do, but yet you don't know how. You don't have the capacity to do that. And you said that, oh, we got the tombs, but then you don't know that the tombs are in Israel, because you like, what does Israel have to do with it? And then you can't provide nothing. Oh my gosh, Christians demonstrate how much of a joke that they are quite often within their own religion. This is just terrible. I don't know the order that everybody just came up on, but so I'm just clicking on TikTok. I don't know what the order is. He got triggered so fast. Oh, little tink tink. We got Belsidius. Am I saying that wrong? Belsidius?
No, that's right. But I didn't want to come up. I came in by mistake.
Oh, okay. That's no problem. That happens. Appreciate you. Helly? Am I saying it right?
Yes, Helly.
Okay. You're over 21?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to ask the question, but I already think I know the answer. Are you a believer in the Bible?
Like, yes, but not in like a literal sense. I think they did a lot of playing with some stories to get the stories in there that they got in there.
Exactly.
And so, right, I also believe these Greek stories line up somewhere. Like, there's a lot of, like, I think Dionysus, I think that's like the real crossover story. They just sound so similar. Like Dionysus, his mother dies, and then like somehow I think one of the stories is that the Titans rip his body apart, but then Zeus saves him.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, oh, so he died and came back to life too, huh? That's crazy.
Yeah, Zeus.
Wow, that sounds.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Titans do rip him apart, and then Zeus takes him and implants him in his thigh and let him regestate again, and then he's reincarnated or resurrected, born out of Zeus's thigh. And turns water into wine, all those
All
sorts
the
of
same
things.
stories,
Yeah.
Same story.
It has a
So I think like part of the connection, I said in the chat, I was like, have you ever heard of Talos? And I think his name is Hephaestus. I can't pronounce that. I'm so bad.
no, I haven't heard of that one.
So
Can't recall.
Hephaestus was the creator of Zeus's thunderbolts.
Oh, yes. Know that dude. Yeah.
Yes. So if you look into his other creations, he had some what were called golden maidens. And these were maidens that were made of gold that followed him around and did his bidding because he had a bad leg.
I didn't know that about Hephaestus. I knew about the thunderbolt. I didn't know that part.
Right. That's the thing is if you start saying like, oh wait, who was that? What did they do? Well, the stories start coming together. Well, also his other creation was Talos. And what was Talos? He's known as the first automaton. The literal words they use is automaton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wasn't he like a golden robot kind of thing that supposedly protected this Greek island?
He was. He did tours around the Crete island and just kind of patrolled, quote unquote. Right?
Yeah.
So then if you look at the biblical stories and you compare those to if you didn't know what technology was and you saw some stuff going down, you'd be a little skeptical that maybe those were some demons happening over there because what are you guys doing? Right? Right, because now they got robots that are over here doing their biddings, like and moving around and cutting trees and moving blocks and this and that. Oh, what are those? What's going on? Right. Now we got some questions happening. Who's doing what?
And wasn't he Talos was killed by somebody did something to his feet.
Oh, that's the lovely story of David and Goliath.
Yeah, they did something to his feet and he wound up dying.
Because he had a liquid in his body called Echor, which was like a golden liquid, quote unquote.
His blood
that helped his body run, right? And so then Medea, quote unquote witch, or whatever you want to call her, steps in and helps the humans out a little bit. Well, nobody really talks about how she helps the humans out, but she helps them out a little bit. The humans or somebody gets the gold, like the bolt out of Ecor's heel, Achilles, and all his blood runs out, and therefore he cannot patrol the island anymore, and the humans can make it on the island. Okay. So, well, how did they do that? Well, let's look into that, shall we? We have what is the Star of David. Does it ever say anywhere in the Bible what the actual Star of David is?
No, it doesn't.
It does not. It does not specify, but we know it's a 6-point star. Well, how do we know that? How did we distinguish that? Where did we get that information? Had to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at technology, like an electromagnetic field, And if you put 6 magnets under the ground, they make a magnetic field that's enough to pull something very, very strong right down and stop it, therefore not letting it move. Oh, well, if you draw a big 6-point star on the ground and you wait till he gets in the ring, if that sounds familiar, come into the ring, and what happens when he steps into the ring? Foot goes down, plants down, pull out the bolt, there goes Talos.
There you go. And so his blood is let out in order for humans to be able to continue to grow, to be on this island.
Exactly. So they can go force away onto Crete and go get whatever it was that they wanted to go get on Crete. Now that the defense system has been disengaged, right?
Yeah.
Well, then what do you do if you disengage a technical system that you don't know how it works? You recover it and you try to figure it out for some time, don't you?
Oh yeah. Or you gotta let it bleed out. You gotta get rid of all the, and that bleeding out is like getting rid of all the cookies, get caches, your files that's fragmented. You gotta,
or maybe you just have an empty automaton that you can take back and take metal off of, try to figure out the technology. You know, we do that today with technology that we don't understand.
Right.
That's flying around in the air. Well, that sounds kind of familiar, right? You're like, oh, well, how long have we been recovering technology and trying to figure it out for?
A long time. And you know, that also reminds me of how John of Patmos supposedly said that they're going to give life to this statue who's going to breathe fire and all this sort of thing. People think they were seeing today. Those were stories, mechanized men or statues talking and stuff. Those were stories that they already had back then. So it wasn't, he ain't seen nothing new.
A dragon with a regenerating head. If you had something that was launching something like drones, and it just kept launching another drone every time you took one down, that would look like a dragon with regenerating heads. Like a giant cannon.
Or a snake that's just coming out of his old skin.
Oh, the snake is a good one, because my theory about Ecor was that it's actually mercury, because none of the humans could inherently touch it. And I think it was Amon's, a lot of people had staffs that the humans could touch, but it would shapeshift from a solid metal into a liquid snake. Well, if you had control of mercury, that it wouldn't affect you, and you could make it into a staff, and you just let it go into a liquid form, but it created a death puddle. Oh.
I see that, you know.
Start to sound a little crazy, but like, is it crazy when we can recreate these things?
No, it's not. Because we can just recreate the same stuff.
Because I can't go and walk on water right now without some kind of technology. But if I had the technology and somebody could visibly see that I had a method, they would not question it.
Yeah, because I saw this guy, he had some specialized shoes, and those shoes allowed him to walk on water. All you need some tech.
We can recreate the technology to recreate these so-called miracles. But the question is, who had the technology first, or who brought the technology down? Because if you go way, way back, like they all started around 3000 BC. If you look at like a lot of the ancient histories across the globe, but like they have more information in the first generation than they got in like the second or third generation. Well, that's not how evolution works.
No, it doesn't.
Right. So that's where the intervention of some sort. Who's the intervention? Is it advanced humans, or is it a power at B that brought all of it down first? Who was the intervention? What was it? Was it us just creating technology and being super advanced? Or
I tend to lean towards that there may have been more advanced civilizations prior to the last ice age, and that ice age plus the Younger Dryas freeze plus the Younger Dryas flood almost destroyed, definitely crippled the shit out of those societies. And then because they emerged out of this whole trauma, people thought that they were gods.
So I think it was only technically the Younger Dryas flood that was global, and almost every other flood myth is localized, if I recall correctly.
No, you're right. And it was only global to the extent of the areas that were near the sea, near the seashore. The more inland tribes, none of them experienced the Younger Dryas flood.
Right.
But and then you're right. Every
So-
other flood is a localized lake, river type of flood.
So then if you bring in the technology theory that maybe humans were using technology beyond what capabilities they should have been,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the floods as a way to wipe out the tech, not quite the humans, like, because they warned some people. They were like, get the hell out of there because something's happening. Now, that could also just be somebody observing from above, seeing things unfolding. If you know a nuclear plant's going to have an incident, you got a couple seconds to be like, haul it out of here, But right, but if you wanted the humans to, you're like, just go up the hill for a minute, but we're going to take all your toys out of a playground essentially, real quick.
Yeah.
You guys were playing around in the sandbox too much. We're taking the toys.
Yeah, and especially if people were just like, it's only been in more recent times that people have been living more inland than normal. But most of human history, the majority of the human civilization have lived on the coast, near the coast. So
because we've always needed access to water. So, least path of travel says stay near the water, build near water.
Yeah. So when you have the Younger Dryas flood, it's going to destroy most of that. Those civilizations are going to be flooded out. And as people go inland and generations go by, you forget how to manage, or you never even knew how to manage all those systems that was in place before.
Right. So that brings me back to Noah, which I think if they were here for the Younger Dryas would have been the one event where they actually had to move people, and move them fast.
Mm-hmm.
So then that brings up the question, was Noah's Ark a boat or was it an aircraft? If there was technology.
Well, I think Noah was just a made up story.
But if you think about it in a technological sense, right? If
Right.
we had the technology and you knew a flood was coming and you didn't gather two of each animal and you had 2 of each DNA sample to take with you.
Right. Yes, I've heard.
You had the technology.
Right. I've heard that one where it's like, I think in one of the Mesopotamian stories, he took, I don't know which person it was. I don't know if it was either Zuasudra or Untapimtum. They gathered the seed.
Untapishtim?
Yeah. He said that he gathered the seed of everything.
Yes.
So gathering the seed sounds more like DNA than gathering an actual animal.
Precisely. And it's a lot more logical. It makes the vessel a lot less big if you go on that, because you're not actually fitting elephants on there if you're fitting vials.
Yeah. And then, but I'm a little leery on the ancient aliens. That's why I'm more on the previous civilizations, that just because we can see civilizations rise and fall, knowledge rise and fall.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not with the alien part.
Which is why I bring in the story of Noah, because I'm like, had somebody or a good few somebody's been knowledgeable enough to be like, we just got to get up in the air for a little bit and then come back down and just start fresh, then it was just us being intelligent.
Right, because the Noah story just doesn't make any scientific sense whatsoever, because there's no way that you can you could be higher than Mount Everest without some type of aircraft. There's no way you're on a boat and you're at the height of Everest. Everything freezes. No one and nothing can breathe at that level.
Right.
So it just wouldn't work.
And then if you look into other Greek stories, for instance, I think it's Alipicius in the Hermetic stories of Hermes.
Mm-hmm.
He speaks of when they take him to heaven so he can scribe and tell the people of what heaven is like. He's taken just above the earth to basically a satellite level. Not too far, just out in the orbit, just enough to see. He said he could see all the rivers and mountains and all of that. So you're just up there a bit, but not too far up there, right?
Not too far.
Not too far, right? So it's like, and when you look at it like that, it kind of the pieces fall together in a way that fit, but it's it's all in belief, right? And then, like I said, the biblical stories have some truth to them. But if you look at how they align with all the other stories, you can see where there was maybe somebody was trying to say a little something, so what they were doing looked a little better in the eyes of God than it actually was.
No, I'm
for the
with you.
benefit of power.
That's a very important part for the benefit of the power. And that's why I think the Jesus story wound up growing, because, well, that is why it grew, because the Romans saw that they can generate power out of these stories, and people will be submissive to the Roman government, because within the Jesus story it tells you that you have to submit to whatever government you were born under.
Right. So the Romans were incredibly intelligent people, right? They had so many civilizations. They rose, they fell. They basically went through every kind of diplomatic system you could have. And then they were like, nope, this is what we're going to settle on here. So if you look at the actual Bible itself, it made it to Rome. And then that's when they took all the stories and they were like, we're going to pick and choose which stories we like and which ones we don't. And we're going to put them in here. And that's going to be the one we ship to everybody.
Yep.
And that's that.
And that was
and
it.
then they locked the real ones in the Vatican or wherever they locked Louvre. I'm not sure. Anywhere, pick one. They're down there. But you know, what we got is the fairy tales. You know, the Disney version. Disney stories.
And they certainly was based off something else. Let me get some other people up here, because today's gonna be real short. But I appreciate you, Haley. Haley.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you. For those who don't know, I go live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Usually I start a little bit earlier, and we end at 5. I try to keep people in the order that they came up, that they requested, as best as I can remember. We're going to try to stay on the subject matter. Today I did just get a little bit off right there. I guess people aren't patient. That's not my problem. Vernita. Okay. I know I'm saying your name completely wrong. Vern, you're up. It connected. Verna.
Yeah.
How do I say your name?
Who is this? Wait a minute.
Did you
see who I'm talking to?
Did you accidentally click on the live?
I don't know what I did, but you're on here, whoever you are. But you kind of got my name. Say, who are you? Anybody I know? I'm trying to see where to cut you up.
Okay, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got it.
Okay.
All right. It is very easy to accidentally click onto a live when you're scrolling through TikTok. So you get a lot of that going on. It's fine. I know there's been a lot of comments. I haven't been able to respond to most of those comments. I don't know if so. Jesus. I mean, of course, you have to be able to prove that Jesus existed. But when in looking at one of the things that we review to see whether or not an actual historical Jesus ever existed, is the fact of some of the stories that was around before Jesus. Now, quoting the Bible does not validate Jesus. That's what's called a circle debate or circle reasoning. Circle reasoning, if that was allowable as proof, then Harry Potter exists, Spider-Man exists, Zeus exists, Oda Madre exists. So when people claim that, the Bible says Jesus exists because the Bible says, no, it has to be something outside of your Bible. You have to have proof outside. But there are many proofs. There are many things within the Bible that are contradictory that will show you that whoever was writing this story was not well aware of Jewish culture at the time frame or Jewish laws. And so the Jesus character, the storyline just doesn't add up correctly. It doesn't work. 3 kid.
Yeah, what's up? What's up, brother?
How you doing? Are you over 21?
Yeah.
All right. Are you a believer in the Bible?
Nah, I don't. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in that.
Okay. So what do you think about Jesus being a copy of any one or a conglomeration of these people? And of course, there's more people that you can also point out.
Wait, what are you? Are you Christian?
Nope.
What are you, Catholic?
That's Christian, man.
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
I don't believe in the Bible.
Okay. Well, you on some alien shit right now. You freaking me out.
I'm not. You weren't listening then. I said I do not go for the alien thing.
Okay. No, I know, but like, I didn't believe literally, but like, yeah. Wait, so like, what do you believe in? I'm confused.
I don't believe in nothing. I have to have proof for everything.
Wait, what? I'm fried. I might be fried, but I don't understand what you're saying. Like I genuinely don't get what you're saying.
So unless you can provide me proof, I don't believe in any of these gods, goddesses, these stories.
Wait, do you think Jesus had like superpowers and shit?
I don't think Jesus existed.
Oh, okay. So we on the same page. My bad.
Yeah. You fried as you said.
Yeah. I'm about to out here.
All right, appreciate you.
Hey, you be safe, bro.
You too. You too. Because I got high. Ahmed.
Yo.
Ahmed, are you over 21?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe in the Bible?
Clearly, I'm up here listening in. You know, I'm feeling so sorry, man. It's like the blind leading the blind up here.
Okay, so do you have any proof that Jesus existed?
People with the highest IQ and even the historians know that Jesus existed.
Not so much. And just because they do doesn't mean that they're right.
Yeah.
And who are the people that you're speaking of? What people?
Lost souls, crabs in a bucket, the ones who deny the truth.
What people with this so-called high IQ, because you can have a high IQ in one area and not in another area. So what people, who are you talking about that believes in Jesus with this high IQ?
The smartest person literally in the world, basically. And not only that, real historians.
Who is the smartest person in the world? Who is these historians?
Highest IQ. That's why you need the highest IQ to be the smartest.
Who is the smartest person in the world? Who is
Chinese? It's a Chinese guy. So that's why you gotta laugh. Why you keep cutting me off? Like, can we talk one at a time? Because it seems like when I speak, you get triggered.
No, I'm not triggered. I just want you to answer the question. See, I don't do generalities. What I do is specifics. So if you're going to say, oh, the historians say that Jesus is a real historical person. No, who is the historian? Who are you quoting?
Clearly just somebody that's smart. So the same reason why you have free will to believe what you want to believe. You don't have faith, and that's a fake laugh. I don't know why you keep fake laughing.
It's not a fake laugh because it's like I just expressed that I do finite information. I do specifics. I don't do this vague shit. So if all you can say is the person with the highest IQ, well, hell, I can name people with very high IQs who do not believe that Jesus actually exists. And I would dare to say that my IQ is very high. And I don't believe that Jesus exists.
Okay. Right. So once again, you have free will. You can drag yourself to hell at the end of the day if you want.
Okay,
but, Jesus
bro, do you have something constructive to add other than trying to preach? Because I don't do preaching. I don't do evangelism on my channel.
I know. That's what,
what proof do you have that Jesus exists?
Clearly, once again, I have faith. I know God. I'm a witness. So consider me your last warning. Now go on.
Is the question too difficult for you to understand? See, obviously the question is too difficult for him to understand. These people want to believe in this guy, but when you ask them to prove this guy, show me some demonstration, give me something, then all they do is, I have faith, and I'm the last one, and you better follow me before you end up in the fire and the hell and torment for all eternity by turning your back on God. Y'all are not good examples of your God, your teachings here. Omega.
Hey, how you doing, bro?
Pretty good. How you doing? Are you over 21?
I'm actually 47.
47. Are you a believer in the Bible?
I'm a believer in all wisdom and knowledge. I believe all of it relates to each other. The thing is deciphering how and how it fits and correlates with each other. I heard the question that you was asking, and
Okay.
you know, and I ask people that same question. Why? Because I have that same question, and I don't know if we're asking it because of the same reason. You know, I actually ask it because I don't believe Jesus was his name, period. So therefore, Jesus wasn't a real person.
Okay, so you don't think there wasn't a Jesus person that was walking around at all? That these are just stories that were created based on other people? Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're in agreement on that. Now you are you're practicing what's called omnism, where you think that everybody is eventually pointing to a God and have different ways of getting there, but of course, some of the information that they talk about is not the actual correct information.
Well, this is what I believe. If you don't mind my sharing,
very quickly,
and because you just gave me a name, and I'm gonna look that up.
What name? Omnism.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's just a belief system. That's not a person.
Because I was raised, my mother and father are ministers of the gospel of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But in my study and the scholarship of the Bible, you know, I look at it as it's actually telling the history of a people that the world really doesn't want, you know what I'm saying, to actually be seen in the full context, because it actually bring about a change. So you got these fictitious characters that was made by Constantine and different other ones, starting with the Council of Nicaea, when they the one actually came up with that. You know, when they said, "Hey, how can we, you know, these people are how can we divide these people or conquer these people?" So they came up with the notions of everything. I got a name up here which is Horus and all that, and people don't know that you actually have something that's true. The reason why they got that name.
Okay, so the Council of Nicaea, that's not what happened at the Council of Nicaea. I'm
talking about that's how it actually got sealed in.
I mean, the Council of Nicaea was just an organizing Christianity under the Romans and solidifying the idea of a Trinity. Constantine legalized Christianity in around 318, 312. 312 was the battle. 318, Edict of Milan is when he legalized Christianity. And his mother had become Christian. So then they wanted to organize Christianity because Christians were fighting one another and disrupting the Roman Empire. You don't get to the Romans fully taking over Christianity and making it the religion of the Roman Empire until Emperor Theodosius in 381.
You're right.
Now
it took some time for it to happen.
The books, now the different books and stuff had already been written as far back as around 144. You have the first canon, which was done by Marcion. So they already had these stories written down. Some of it, and now some of the stories were tweaked later on, but the main part of the stories had already been written down in the 2nd century.
I agree.
So, but what we don't have any of these stories written down that we can prove positive them written down in the 1st century. We did have religions that were very similar to what Christianity becomes in the 1st century, and even and a lot earlier than the 1st century, as you mentioned, Asar, Heru. You know, people already knew of those stories and those stories' influence them, you know, of how they would write this Jesus story.
I agree.
But who are now you said something interesting that perked my interest. You said they were trying to hide a people's real story. Whose story? Because
So
this is not historical at all.
Well, actually, if you read the book of Deuteronomy, starting at read it in it, the whole chapter. Whenever I read the Bible or whatever I'm reading, I read it as though it's a manual if I can understand it. So that way, if someone is preaching it, and regardless if I believe it or not, I need it as a tool. That way, I can explain what it is that I believe. But read, it's 3 chapters that people ignore. Read Deuteronomy 26, 27, and 28.
Okay.
That explains exactly for us who the people are relating to.
And who are those people?
But those people are the people of the sun.
Okay. Who are those people today?
Black people.
Absolutely not.
Yes. We have the spirit,
When-
we have the curse that
when-
God cursed. He cursed the children of Israel with a curse. That's why I say you got to read it in Deuteronomy, the whole book. He cursed them with the spirit of consumption, and he actually told them they would never produce anything. They'll be a people of consumption. Look at what we are plagued by. We are plagued by consumption. We are plagued by people who have taken everything we have created. They took it. All the patterns that we created throughout time, they took it.
So when you widen your viewpoint, because when you say black people, are you only referring to those in the
Everyone
Americas?
is not black.
Are you only referring to those in the Americas? Okay, so there is a distinct difference between black people who live in the United States and
Yes,
black.
people only exist in the United States. I apologize for cutting you off. They only exist in the United States. I used to be, I'm a Marine veteran.
Oh, Semper Fi, Devil Dog.
Outside the United States, I have never been cussed out, spit on, none of that. And never been called the N-word, none of that. I ain't never experienced it outside of these 50-something states. Never.
I will say that outside of the United States, there's a hell of a lot less racism, but yet I still experienced it. When I went to Moscow, I still experienced the racism.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to say it like that. But yeah,
Nah,
right
man,
about
shit.
that.
Any place I went to in Russia, I experienced some level of it. Depending upon what Arab nation I was in, I experienced it. So what you're saying is that other people who are highly melanated, they're not considered black people in your worldview.
No.
Because and is that because you're
the government, the U.S. government actually just their form of system of actually classification when they actually broke down the Negroid.
Okay. So let me ask you this one then. How do you connect Deuteronomy 28 with the selling away on ships to Egypt to the black people who were in South Africa?
Because Egypt isn't where if you actually read some stuff, Egypt isn't where modern day Egypt is now. That name was actually Kemet then. They changed names a lot. They still do that now.
I understand.
They changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of what? America.
It's still Gulf of Mexico to me. I understand what you're saying, but here's the problem with that. In Deuteronomy, when it says they will sail away on ships to Mizraim, it has the definite article there. The definite article makes it the actual land that they call Mizraim. That is later translated to Kemet or Egypt. Same piece of land, though, regardless of what you name it. Deuteronomy is specifically talking about the land that they had spoken of, that they came out of in the so-called Exodus that never happened, that Abraham went down into. All that is talking about that land. It's not talking about a situation of bondage.
No, I agree with that to a certain extent, because I honestly believe we are in. I hate to say it like this because I don't want to seem like I'm arguing with you, because I'm in agreement with a lot of stuff you say. I honestly believe we're in the promised land now. Like right now, where I'm sitting at, I'm looking at Gopher Wood, and Gopher Wood is mentioned in the Bible.
Okay, see, this is what we can't do, man.
Okay.
It was a pastor in the 1950s, 1960s, somewhere around in there, who looked at the Turre trees in Florida and South Georgia, and he named them gopher wood.
No, I'm talking about this tree right here that I'm no. My brother, let me show you what gopher wood really is if I can turn on my camera for you. Actually, the name of it is really a pine tree. That's the only tree that's actually naturally waterproof. So if you was gonna build a fence out of any wood, you would build it out of something that naturally water repellent. And that's a pine tree. They only grow down here in this area.
No one knows, when the Bible speaks of gopher wood, no one knows what that is or what that tree was. That was not here. So you think all of that stuff happened here in America, in the United States?
Yes. 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 Yes.
So
that's why they won't give us reparations.
Archaeology
Reparations for something that's really there.
Archaeology would disagree 100%. I did a video years ago where I showed the trail of the Mississippi River, because many people were claiming that the Mississippi River is the Euphrates.
It's the great Euphrates, the tree.
There is not one point in the Mississippi River where it begins. 4 rivers do not flow out of where the Euphrates River begins.
Say that again.
4 rivers do not initiate out of where the Mississippi River begins. So you fought. Go ahead.
You're right, because I was actually looking at that also. I was like, well, hold up. I was trying to see if it was in a play with that at one point. And I was like, okay, well, where are the actual starting points for this? Have it changed because of the warming of the climate?
Yeah, I looked that up too, and there's no ancient rivers that you can see initiate out of that area where the Mississippi River begins.
I heard that one time though.
So the Mississippi River, just based on that one thing out of Genesis, cannot be the river Euphrates that is spoken of in the Bible.
Okay. Well, can we agree on the only people to ever be I don't know if I can ask that question like that, but I appreciate your time.
Okay.
I enjoy listening to what people have, their thoughts, because that's how you actually learn. You don't cast everything that you hear away. You verify.
Yeah. I always tell people, go verify the information. Don't just trust what I say. But I appreciate you.
Most definitely.
Thank you, Omega. Oh, this joker right here. What up there, IG?
What's happening, baby? We're live and uncensored. I'm home from the plantation today. Definitely is Jesus a copy. I definitely noticed the parallels between the Heru and Horus. What Heru and Horus, so the story of the telling of the sun, moon, and the sun rising. What that just tells me, that's the tribal interpretation of the observation of nature and giving folklore to that. And so I would think, even when I know of some of Dionysus and Apolloniana and some Osiris, but even some ones I don't know, I am sure that I'm going to find the characteristics of observing the terrain and the land and the sun and the moon cycle around them and explaining that from a non-scientific way or a folklore way of understanding. So if we can prove that these other civilizations do exist and existed regardless of spiritual belief longer than the ones that are affiliated with this Abrahamic belief, then of course, yes, it would not be far-fetched that it's some form of imitation and copy, especially us being Americans. There's an amalgamation of so many of these so-called white folks. Y'all forget that these jokers are Europeans that come from different parts of Europe, different nations of Europe, different colonies of Europe. Same thing with everybody else who immigrates here after the 65 Immigration Acts. Everyone has a degree of imitation and copying once you get into trading and etc. with people. So yes, Jesus, if regardless of it being real or not, the imitation of interpreting nature from an allegory, yes, I would definitely say he would be a copy. Absolutely.
It definitely it is not something outside of the normal growth of
Mm-mm.
any and all other religions. Every religion, and you can even look at it in the simplest form of how do you have 40,000 different denominations of Christianity? They all had a base that they begin from, and then people start manifesting different ideas, getting sprinkled or getting submerged. They have always supposed to be a rapture. The rapture fails, so out of that failure, we're going to start 7-day events. You know, Joseph Smith claims that he found some golden plates. Abraham said, Muhammad said he talked to the angel Gabriel. Every religion that is around today is a twist on a previous version of that religion. And even that religion, and so when you go and you research the history of that religion, it is a twist on another previous version of a religion. Nobody's bringing nothing new. And when you get all the way back, it comes down to people observing nature, not understanding the science behind that nature, and attributing some type of mystical force to it. And that's why, like IG was saying, the story of Heru is looking at, so they already knew the constellation of Asar. So that is what the Greeks call Orion. The belt of Asar points to what the Greeks call Canis Major, which the Egyptians called Aset. And the star Sirius was her womb. So his belt points towards the womb of Aset. And on the 25th of December, the sun starts moving 1 degree north. The days start getting a little bit longer. So now we're going to survive the winter. So it is the birth of the sun that brings about life. That's Heru. So it is, this whole story of the birth is based on wintertime, defeating wintertime, which to people back then could mean starvation. If you don't win winter, you will starve.
If you do not harvest appropriately in the fall to brave the winter, you will not make it. Preservation, self-preservation wasn't just something we say for mental health. No, it also meant preservation of resources, food, livestock, and shelter.
Exactly. And so they just made gods out of these things. And people, as we've grown, and here's what's fun, as we grow in science, we start to not give these attributes over to deities. So that's why in that, over the time of Christianity, first it started with the Zoroastrians. First it started with Akhenaten, and then it was lost for a long ass time. Then the Zoroastrians came back with it, where God started being this eternal just being. And as we move through more scientific times, God had to become more and more of some ethereal being that has no beginning, no end, doesn't manifest his anger through storms and all that sort of thing, so that people can keep and maintain that religion. Those are the twists that has happened, because you could take somebody from the 1000s, a Christian from the 1000s, send that joker back to the 300s, to about 380. They're going to have a different version of Christianity than what they had in 380.
And see, I was listening to something by a brother named Christian A. Smith, and he's talking to a Hindustani East Indian missionary, who he is an East Indian by his ethnicity and everything like that. And he says that his ancestors had a version of serving Christ 1,500 years prior to colonial Western and all that other stuff and stuff like that, which we're not surprised. Which we know about the 1st century and where they from the East, where how we got Ethiopia, got their Christians and having that conflict. We already, but anyway, it's one of those things to where I always keep in some consideration with every empire or rulership that the technological advances always seem to marry with those who create the spiritual, moral code for the society. And I often wonder, I'm speculating, this is my opinion, I'm not saying this is some type of grand revelation, but I often think that the people who have the technological advances intentionally does give everyone else under. I want you to think on this mystical and this very algorithmic way, just to keep you, like you said, for controlling in line. So even if there is, just like we know with the technology we had, I'm sure the military had access to the technology that we now use casually, maybe
Hmm.
15, 20 years ago. So it's not far-fetched then the people that even if they are intellectually innovative or that doesn't devoid the tract of human control and metaphor for, I mean, sorry, and motivation for rulership. So in every class system and every civilization, not every, I shouldn't speak, but a vast majority, should I say, that there's always whoever has the technological advance for that time and innovation always determines what is the religiosity, ritual, or spiritual outcome or of that time or that demographic. So that's why for me, I think I've gone to an acceptance of not because I believe in some divine force, but when I be saying God is real, that's what I'm saying. I know that the ideal and the construct, because man created this technology that we're using now, even me being an 80s baby, you couldn't fucking tell me, baby, about 16, 17, 18, 20 years ago that I'd be on a video conference with you on some Star Trek Jetsons type shit.
No, I'm with you. I understand what you're saying because we can see that in history where whether we're talking about when Christian missionaries went to China and they saw the writings of Shandi, and then they try to say, "Oh, you got these writings of Shandi. That's talking about the God of our book, our Bible." And so they try to convert those people into Christianity. Or with the Panera Bible, when they told the Panera Indians that, hey, you are the reason why Jesus died. So because they didn't have a sense of shame and guilt, so they had to give them a sense of shame and guilt, rewrite a different version of the Bible to make the Panera people the ones who executed Jesus, in order for them to convince those people to become Christian. And they came in with greater technology because they were the colonials, and that has happened over and over and over again. And even with the Shandi, when a new emperor took over, it went from Shandi to another one that's similar, and they just changed the name because they only wanted to fit their empire instead of fitting the Shan empire that was beforehand. So man has continued to flip somebody's religion to just in order to control them. But
so
at the end of the day, I can't get rid of there's being a God because I got to have some proof that a God exists.
Exactly. I'm not saying, of course, I'm not. But what I do simply say is the innovation of the creation of a God existed? Absolutely. Is the consequences of that day in and day out? Yes. Does it have a reality? No matter how ridiculous it is, does it have a real life consequential effect on this side of, regardless of your line, if you live or die, if you believe that there's some shit on the other side or wherever the fuck you come from? That dash though, bro. That line between your death date and your birthday though.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's gonna be. That's what I can see where this religion, where these spiritual systems, religions have had ultimate consequences of its philosophy and its effect when we yet live. And that's why I think for most people it's hard to detach that.
Yeah.
It's real. That's a, like, you know what I'm saying, like it's a tough dig, and I'm trying not to get into the point of where I'm insulting very intelligent people that are under an ingenious um manipulation. I think people don't understand that geniuses outmaneuver the intelligent people because geniuses are going to be innovative and they're going to come up with ways to
Yeah.
move with knowledge and ways, despite you having more said knowledge and other ways that a lot of geniuses outmaneuver the intellectuals.
Yeah, and just like that guy who was saying that people with high IQ still believe that a God exists. You can have a high IQ, but a high IQ person can still be manipulated into believing whether or not somebody exists, and that was what you're calling genius. And then sometimes it's not even that. A lot of people like to bring up, because I was hoping that he would name somebody, because most Christians will name Bart Ehrman and say Bart Ehrman, he believes that a historical Jesus exists. But if you look at Bart Ehrman's life, he is over the religious studies department of UNC Chapel Hill. Financially, he cannot come out and say that a historical Jesus never existed. It would ruin his finances. The school would demote him or retire him if he came out and said that. So financially, he can't do it. And that's another pressure that a lot of these people have, is that they know in order to stay, they can be disagreeable, but to stay in the limelight where the majority of people are not going to not going to ignore them, they can't go full out and say what they really want to say. But when you got a person like myself, I don't care. My life doesn't depend on some company. It doesn't depend on a government office. It doesn't depend on none of those things. So I can say what the hell I want to say.
All right. Well, I work for a company, but what I don't have to do is shuck a job and deal with religiosity and all of that. I've never put up and dealt with in.
Yeah, it depends on what company something happened to his feet. Like if you were a school teacher can't come out and say the shit that I'm saying. If you worked in like a regular school system, they would kick your ass out. You can't even be at a bar and be a school teacher. Something happened to his feed, but I was going to kick him anyway in a minute here so I can try to get some of these other people on here, because we only have so much time. I know a couple of people who was here earlier. The rest of them, I have no idea when y'all came up. The black man is God. Black man is God. You there? Going once. Black man is God. Going twice. Black man is God. Going 3 times. Black man is God. I guess he wasn't there. Couldn't hold on. God dang it. Now I'm just going to start clicking on names until somebody comes up. Just clicking on names. I'm convinced on TikTok, a lot of people accidentally hit it. Or they just don't have patience. One of the two. Debs. Hello, Debs. 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 Debs, going once. Debs, we can hear your TV in the background. I don't think Debs is there. Let's see. I don't think Ishmael. Nope, not there. Ishmael. 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 Ishmael is not there. A lot of people click. Hey, what's your atheist is illogical?
Hello, how you doing?
Pretty good. What's your name?
My name?
Yeah.
Am I on the screen deal or my actual name?
Actual name that I can call you.
You can call me Shannon.
All right, Shannon. Are you over 21?
Yes.
Are you a believer in the Bible?
Basically, yes.
Okay. So do you believe that there was a historical Jesus, or he was a copy of any one or a grouping of some of the people that's listed here, maybe even others?
I do believe he existed, and the copy is probably the correct way to understand meme organism.
The correct way to understand, what was that word?
Meme.
Meme.
Organism.
Okay.
M-E-M-E.
Right.
It is where the internet meme originally come from. Richard Dawkins. Are you familiar with Richard Dawkins?
Yeah, a little bit.
He's one of the modern gods of new atheism.
Well, there's no gods in atheism.
Yeah, Richard Dawkins is a god of atheism.
No,
he's highly revered and respected among other atheists.
That doesn't make you a god.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make you Buster the Scott meatballs. It's a god position. So when you're in that position of being higher of authority, like the biblical style gods, kings, judges are in the god positions to be called Elohim. But whenever you understand what the biblical word Elohim means, it's a title. It's like king, judge, president. That's a position.
Okay, so conversation now today is not to debate atheism. So we're talking about Jesus' character, because
that's where that's so. I'm just getting on the meme. Meme is originally coined by Richard Dawkins as ideal behavior or style.
Okay.
Those ideal behavior style, as Dawkins, even he's a of course he's atheist and he's a biologist, and so he explains the meme as being it's kind of like it's its own thing of information. It's almost and really I put it out as it's going to have its own cognition at a certain point of its kind of like a person, a person, from the zygote up through pregnancy and all that, they're going to eventually have the cognition in a sense. I don't think so anyways, the theme of biblical text is that all that meme information, those ideal behaviors and styles of the Old Testament people, is what evolved to be Jesus in the New Testament. So it is a carbon copy. The life of Jesus in the New Testament is a carbon copy of that meme information of the Old Testament people.
All right. And so you're saying that they utilize the ideas of the Old Testament, which we can see that, especially in the book of Matthew, because he misquotes and misunderstands a lot of it, and attributes those things to this character, Jesus.
Yes, that's part of, and that's really, it takes the mysticism out of saying he fulfilled prophecy. It's actually showing that the meme information is an ideal behavior style. It was most recorded in the Old Testament, and it was passed down from person to person through those generations of Old Testament people.
Okay.
And that information evolved and become Jesus of New Testament.
So then you agree with me that there wasn't a person walking around early first century named Jesus who performed all these miracles and did all this stuff?
Well, I'm agreeing. As far as I'm concerned, there was. He was his biological nature is what I'm saying. Is meme. The coalescence of information.
Okay, I hear the word salad part, but what is your proof that this Jesus existed?
What now?
What is your proof that this Jesus existed?
We have meme organism evidence throughout history.
What is the proof?
Meme organism. You'd have to learn the science of meme evolution.
Can you be born in two different decades?
Maybe. I don't know what's your question.
Can you be born in two different decades? Can you be born in 1980 and be born in 2000?
No, I wouldn't say no on that one.
Okay. So according to the Matthew version of the story, Jesus was born before Herod died, which would be no later than 4 BCE. According to Luke, Jesus died during the time frame that Quirinius was governor of Syria, which would be 6 CE. There's that minimum a 10-year gap. Jesus could not have been born no person can be born in 2 different decades.
Okay. Well, that would fall under the science of eyewitness testimony and the information being passed, the mean information, and people getting maybe information incorrect and documenting it incorrectly. So I don't doubt that the stuff has contradictions with the science and psychology of the people that were eyewitnesses that were maybe illiterate at the time. They didn't have means or way to write stuff down, so they depended on their memory. Well, the science shows our memories, even to like a bank robbery. 2 different witnesses to the same bank robbery can give details that are contradictory.
You know, something as simple as that, I would grant you. But when we're talking about whether or not 9/11 happened under Bush or 9/11 happened under Obama, that's not something that an eyewitness, if you got eyewitnesses, regardless of their being literate or illiterate, because that literal or illiterate doesn't mean the person is not smart or the person don't observe things and understand what they're observing. That just means you can read or write. But when you got 2 different things saying that, well, 9/11 happened under one president, another person says it happened on another president, they cannot both be true. So somebody's just plain out lying.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm not trying to dispute if the facts are showing that there's a contradictory in the 2 different statements, and obviously one cannot be correct, so there's some kind of error. I don't have a problem with recognizing that particular error exists. However, that does not negate the overall, like the understanding that a bank robbery actually happened. Whether the robber had a red shirt or a blue shirt is really irrelevant to the fact that the bank was robbed. Well, something did in fact happen. Well,
see, those simple comparisons don't actually work. That's apples and oranges, because you have to now say, okay, because of what Matthew wrote, then you have to, did King Herod kill a whole bunch of children? Did he go down to Egypt? Did he come back and Herod Archelaus was ruling and he went to Galilee? So now it throws into question all these other things that are different. And then as it continues to go throughout the story, even more things become different. Was there an earthquake when he was supposedly executed? What day did it happen? What time did it happen? Did the day sky become night? So all these other things start to add up to where you cannot claim that these people are eyewitnesses, because nobody else eyewitnessed any of the things that the general population would have eyewitnessed. Like if an earthquake happened in Jerusalem and a bunch of zombies were walking around, would not the other people who were there at that time frame would have seen those things as well, right?
Well, possibly, I guess.
You guess? You don't think the other people?
I mean, it's kind of like you see homeless people walking around. Not everybody does.
No. Come on. Let's be honest here. If there's a earthquake strong enough to move a rock from a grave, and these rocks were heavy as shit, other people would have noticed the earthquake, right?
Well, I guess so. It still doesn't seem to me that if there are some errors that are, like I say, to me, it's just errors of like a different color shirt by different witnesses. It doesn't.
I think you're oversimplifying the errors so that it can make sense, so that you can jump through the hoop. These errors are massive errors. These are errors that would determine whether or not the person is writing a story 50, 60 years, 100 years later, and they're just making shit up based on a common theme that has already been taught. Because how can you not? Everybody would notice an earthquake. Everybody, you don't think everybody in Venezuela the other day noticed that 7.5 earthquake? If you were living in,
I didn't notice it. I didn't know there was
one
the other day because I didn't watch the news.
Hold on, let me finish. Now, if you were living, I forgot what city it was in, but if you were living in that city, you can't tell me you would not have noticed that everybody didn't notice the 7.5 earthquake that happened in, I don't remember the city of Venezuela.
Sure, I'm sure they felt it. They felt it, and they knew it was an earthquake. So
Okay, so here we are in Jerusalem, and Matthew claims that an earthquake, which would have had to have been a massive earthquake to roll this stone, and nobody else noticed it. Josephus didn't notice it. As a historian, Josephus didn't know it, but Philo, who was a writer at the time frame, he didn't notice it. Seneca didn't notice it. None of these people noticed it. The Romans didn't notice it. The Romans who was ruling Judea at the time frame, none of them noticed an earthquake.
well, that's kind of falls on the principle of absence of evidence doesn't mean evidence of absence.
No, it doesn't. It means that it didn't happen because the Romans wrote down when natural disasters occurred in their territories.
Where's that documented at?
Just all you gotta do is research other Roman governorships and things that, and when they have natural disasters, because what they would do. So let's say an earthquake would have happened at that level, some walls and houses fall down. So, and let's say Pontius Pilate was the governor of Judea at that time frame. Well, he wasn't governor, he was prefect of Judea at that time frame. He would have written that into the emperor, into the Senate, saying that, hey, this happened and this is the destruction level and this is what we need to rebuild. We have, there are all kinds of records of that type of thing happening throughout the Roman Empire, but yet it never happened in Judea at the time frame that the earthquake that Matthew claims.
I don't know. Like I say, there might be something out there that could document that it did, and I just don't know about it. So I'm not going to say that something is not documented or whatever it is. That sure, I'd have to say I don't know about. But,
okay. Well, let me get to some more people because I only have about 45 minutes.
Okay. All right.
All right. Appreciate you. I'm not having a lot of patience today. Not today. Limited time. Let's see. I saw somebody else before the other people who were on here, before some of my YouTubers. Joseph. Oh, before Joseph speak, the Trifold, thank you for becoming a member on YouTube. Appreciate that. Joseph Benjamin.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, you can hear me well?
Yep, can hear you clear.
All right, cool. How's it going, man? You doing all right?
Pretty good.
So I heard that you have that you have limited patience today. So I guess you're not quite in the mood to deal with same old arguments, I'm assuming. I'm sure you've heard it all before. So then, since you've heard it all before, and I would assume you're smart enough to have every angle in the book as to why Jesus is a copy. I guess my question to you would be, why do you think, based on what research or evidence that you've concluded to, that he is a copy?
Okay, so let me start out by saying my patience level, if we're having an intelligent conversation, then I have all the patience in the world. Mm-hmm. But when you start just making up and saying what I consider to be dumb shit, like, everybody wouldn't have noticed an earthquake, and you want to say that you was in America and you didn't notice the earthquake in Venezuela, that's not what I'm talking about. And then when I say that everybody would have noticed the earthquake, but then you agree to that, but then jump over to this earthquake in Jerusalem is like, oh, well, they could have. I ain't got time for no could haves. And just because, I ain't got time for that kind of dumb shit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Now, as far as
willingness to admit, willingness to concede if something is contradictory to what I thought was a logical. I think that you gave a logical explanation for that. There would have been a lot of other people, especially since the area was ruled by the Romans. Since you said they kept records of it, which I didn't even know that. They kept meticulous records. Then they would have, since they ruled the area, the Jews were just living there. They would have kept a record of such a thing taking place. So it would have been wiser to simply say, well, I didn't know that. I got to look more into that, as opposed to doubling down, which is that's human nature. People want to be right about certain things, and they're willing to die on the hill for that, regardless if it doesn't make any logical sense or comes to a reasonable conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's where my patience, and I'm glad that you said that. Now, as far as my conception of why I don't think that Jesus is even a historical character, one, we have very meticulous records of people like Philo of Alexander, Seneca, who were writing about all the things that was going on in Jerusalem. And Seneca wrote about a lot of natural history things that was going on in Judea, throughout the Roman Empire. And these were first century writers who were writing at the time frame that Jesus supposedly was alive. And with Philo being a Hellenized Jew, he never wrote anything about this uprising of a Christian, a new style of religion that was disrupting the Jewish people in Jerusalem. Now and then another thing, Philo paints a hugely different picture of Pontius Pilate than what the Bible paints him as. He paints him as the ruthless person that he was, which then is supported by the fact that the emperor thought that he was so damn ruthless that he called him to Rome to charge him for humanity, basically what we would call, crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
Crimes against humanity. The emperor dies, but then the Senate still execute Pilate because he was so damn cruel, right? So the Bible wants you to believe that Pilate was washing his hands of this, and he arbitrated 3 times to the people, and then gave the body to Joseph of Arimathea, which that violates Jewish law. Even though they were under Roman law, they still Roman law allowed them to incorporate their Jewish laws as long as the Jewish law didn't interfere with Roman law. And one of the Jewish laws is the fact that people who are executed because they are a criminal do not get a burial chamber by themselves. They get thrown into a mass grave for criminals. So they don't get their own little grave. The Romans didn't, and because of Jewish law said that the family of a criminal don't get the body, and no individual gets the body, that the body is now owned by the state. Pilate, being the ruthless person he was, would not have given the body to Joseph of Arimathea. So it's a whole lot of violation of the laws that were written and that people followed at that time frame, and the customs and the nature of the persons. So that's just like a little piece of why I don't think the Jesus character ever actually existed. Within the Bible itself. I'm pretty sure you heard the 10-year gap thing, right?
Something about his birth or something like that. And being unable to explain the 10-year difference in terms of when he was born, that whole thing. So yeah, I know there's an argument about that. I've been looking into it recently.
Yeah, it just shows that these stories were written for a particular audience in order to try to fulfill things that the writer already knew about in the Old Testament. So Matthew is trying to make Jesus fulfill things in the Old Testament. Luke, who at best is a Hellenized Jew, is not writing to fulfill to the Jewish people, but to the Gentile people. So he's forcing the story to somewhat fit the Jewish tradition, but is appeasing to the Romans. And because of that, they get stuff all messed up.
Okay. Well, my thoughts on your first exhortation about Pontius Pilate, he could not have been this figure in scripture, how it describes him as having seen no fault in this man that these people want executed so bad, the high priest Jews.
Right.
That you're saying that his character, from his previous, current, and future actions, having met this figure of Jesus, would not have matched his own nature, and that you're basically saying that he would have been quick to have him crucified. And particularly, I would suspect you would say that he would want him crucified even quicker in order to appease the Sanhedrians and the Pharisees, the high priests, those with the power, to kind of quench their thirst in a sense, their bloodthirst. Okay, you want this guy dead? He's dead, right? So you would say, well, how is it possible that this man, who was in fact bloodthirsty, so much so that the emperor, the emperor of Rome, was like, you go too far. Like, I can't. You gotta ease up on the mass deletions here. How is it possible that a man like Pontius would speak of Jesus in the way that he did? And my response to that would be, we have known, at least I have done some research on serial deleters who would, by all accounts, be incredibly evil and immoral to a lot of people. But for some reason or another, they laid not one hand on perhaps their significant other, perhaps to their children. In fact, they would go out and do a lot of these evils, and their family, those whom they loved dearly, would be none the wiser. They would just simply, they would be surprised themselves that my father did this, right? So to say that this man Pontius Pilate had absolutely no humanity within him, so much so that it probably confused him as to why this man who just like he wouldn't hurt a fly, this man who is bloodthirsty, Pontius Pilate, would say that, it would seem contradictory. But what I'm saying is that it would be akin to someone who just like, I don't even want to touch this person, but they want you dead. Why do they want you dead? It's crazy that it would confuse him, and you would think he would be the first to say, okay, you're done for. But he had to just give them to the Jews because that's what they wanted, and gave them a choice. To me, he wanted to give him a way out because he could not see fault in him. This man, who was as evil as he was himself, said, I could not see no fault in him. And it's the innocence, whatever he saw in this man, it's possible that he saw something so genuine, so innocent, so pure that I don't want to touch him. So I'll leave it up to the Jews to decide his fate. Because they want me to do it, I don't want to take that on. See, but everything else I can do. That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And it doesn't make sense because what you're doing is you're comparing a person who does that sort of thing. Like there are murderers who have children and they are loving fathers. That's to their own family. This is not someone who's in Pilate's family or a political friend or anything of the sort. So the familiar relationship would not be there. He's written up to be that way in the Bible, which is my point, that the Bible writes him up to be this way because he's already villainized to the Roman people by the time these stories are being written. He's a villain to the Romans. So they don't mind you villainizing someone that they already think is evil and changing their story or, doing that kind of thing. But there are other problems with the storyline. So you have the Sanhedrin court. They come up, find Jesus. They have a court at night, which is a violation of the Sanhedrin laws and the Jewish law and tradition. This court is being held on the day before Passover, which is another violation that they wouldn't have this during the day of Passover, but the day before Passover. Them having it at night, all their courts have to be done during the day. They make a decision that night. The Sanhedrin rules are that they have to wait. They have to go to, you can't give a verdict the same day that you have a trial. But then in this storyline, they give a verdict the same day that they have a trial, which just shows again how the writers didn't understand Jewish customs and laws. So none of those things would have added up in order for Pilate to say, okay, I'm gonna give in to the Jews. And then every Passover, Pilate didn't give a damn. Everybody who claimed to be the Jewish Messiah, which was a Roman law violation, because the Jewish Messiah is supposed to kick out the occupying country and set up their own kingdom, which would have been a violation of Roman law. So he would not have cared about appeasing the Jewish people. because they was having these uprisings and these Messiah types all the time. And Rome didn't care that he was killing those people. It was when he killed a bunch of Samaritans that they finally got pissed off with him. It was when he was having Roman centurions dress up as local people and beating the shit out of people with clubs. Those are the things that they finally got pissed off with him about. Killing messiahs was not a problem. They looked favorably upon that. And he wouldn't have placated to the Jewish people. Romans were very nationalistic
Like
as an occupying nation.
As Americans are.
True, as Americans are. So him seeing so what you're combining, you're trying to mitigate what we actually know about Pilate, and then how the Bible tries to soften Pilate up so that the Roman people would not blame. So it wouldn't be that another Roman killed this guy, but this lower caste of people killed him. So now the Romans can say this story is acceptable because we're not the villains, even though you're making a villain seem a little nicer, but we as Romans aren't the villains. The real villains is these Jewish people that we don't think is worthy of citizenship. Them people.
Well, I guess my only and not pushback, but addition to would be that the individual doesn't have to be familial in nature, or it could be a complete stranger. I mean, I could also point examples about how someone, they could be on the killing spree, but it's something about this person that they just, I don't want to touch this person. It's like, well, why didn't you just come after me? And I just didn't, right? I just skipped over you for whatever reason. No relation to that person whatsoever. So it's entirely possible for a man to have bloodthirst, to that literally be his occupation, which is what part of his job was. Executions, killing any uprising that might come up during the Jews, and we're not going to take it. We're not okay. We got to squash that. Here's some blood for you, right? You calm down now. So I think the reason, most likely, more probabilistic, is the reason why it's noted in Scripture that he did what he did, as is written, is because it was so unusual. It's because it was not of his normal nature. Like he would not have stalled on making that decision and ham hard and biting his teeth like, well, I don't want to do it. You could say it's a lie. You could say, oh, it's not his nature, which I would agree with. But I believe that part of the reason why it was even written at all is because, even Pontius Pilate saw no reason to crucify this man, and simply said, well, you guys have at it. You decide. You want this Jesus, the one here, or this Jesus, the one who I see is blameless.
Okay. So let me interject into that part right there. Do you know that the whole concept of before Passover offering a pardon to somebody, that's not even a real concept that was in first century? Like, that wasn't something that the Romans did. That wasn't something that the Jewish people did or participated in. That was a creation. That was a second century creation of a concept.
Pardoning of
the
picking and
whole thing
choosing
between Jesus and the Yeshua and Yeshua Barabbas. That concept of a Roman emperor saying that on your Passover, I'm gonna offer you the people the pardoning of someone who's a criminal. That's not even a thing in first century. It's not a first century Roman tradition. It's not a first century Israelite tradition. That's something that was made up later. That nowhere else in Roman history, Jewish history, does that type of tradition ever comes about. And remember, the Bible says, as was the tradition, he offered them. That wasn't a tradition. So it just further shows the story is just made up.
So stories being made up. Could it be a case of, okay, this detail here doesn't make sense, therefore none of it makes sense? are you taking that stance in the sense that because it's a really ancient text, it's really old, we all know it's been tampered with. Even Christians who are somewhat reasonable would agree to that. That because any tampering was done whatsoever, which was absolutely the case, therefore none of it is real, and therefore Jesus is a copy. It seems like that's obviously is not just this specific thing that led you to the conclusion of Jesus is a copy. I know you're much more nuanced than that, but because you've seen a lot of little details like this one, that's like, oh, wait, okay, X. Okay, this thing X. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. It's a lot of X's compared to a lot of green check marks. Is that essentially how you came to Jesus as a copy? It's too many missing details, too many errors, things don't match history. It's got to be a copy.
Almost, except for the fact that you are minimizing by saying this little context here, this little context there. These aren't little things. These are major things that violates the historicity of the story in itself, right? This is like me believing in the Man in the High Castle. Like 1,000 years from now, somebody believing the Man in the High Castle was a real story that happened in the United States. You would have to say that the Nazis never conquered America. I'm saying that the Nazis conquered America. That's not a little thing. That's a major thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a lot of there's a lot of major contradictions, a lot of major things that violates history. There are anachronisms and things of that nature. Those reasons are big reasons. And when the mass of information goes against it, then what little may be true, to which there is nothing that we can demonstrate that is true, then its story has to be falsified. And especially when we have a first century person named Apollonius who does many of the main things that the Jesus character supposedly did. And then we have past stories of Dionysus, Mithra, Crestius, who did the things that Jesus did. And so there's a template that was already there for these stories to then be written based on, but with massive issues. And these issues are massive. They're not minimal at all.
I agree with the excessive tampering and the inclusion of certain things from other, I guess, gods, deities that was worshipped in the past, especially in Egyptian time, inserted into it. I have my theory about it. And I think it's a logical one. Just based on what I've read in scripture, the research that I've done, trying to piece together things like, why are these things like Heru, Horus, and Osiris, and all these different gods, these elements from Sumerian times? So like, what the hell is going on here? Because it would cause one to say, well, this is not, I think, and this is just my theory. This is not, I don't have any like hard evidence I can give you. Can you prove it? I don't. But just based on my own personal thoughts, sitting and praying about it, like, what is going on here? What could possibly be the reason for this? It could be as simple as Jesus himself was such a unassuming man, a person who existed, who seemingly done these things, these great things, right? I mean, I think objectively speaking, talked about love, talked about kindness, talking about the corruption within the high Jewish court. It was making billions off the people, telling people you can go straight to God. You don't need these people, pissing them off, obviously. So doing a lot of objectively good things for the Jewish people at the time, giving them a way out outside of their, not just the physical bonds of the Roman Empire, which is what the Jews thought he was going to do, but morally the spiritual and emotional chains that the people put them on, similar to how today with the Muslims and the big old rock that they go there, it used to be the Mecca, and now these same people have ownership over this. They commoditized it, they commercialized it, and made it where you have to pay thousands of dollars for you to go to Mecca, and it's a requirement to do it if you're Muslim. I would imagine that was similar to how it was then. So you had this man who was preaching against this, talking about it and building a following around it. Yeah, you're right. We don't have to pay all our gold and give up our houses and everything in order to get access to God. That pisses some people off. So he was so unassuming that after he passed, now this is the theoretical part, that he was not a God. And so you have a lot of people who believe in Jesus. Oh, well, we believe he was real. We have evidence. I know my cousin who met him before. But you know what? Can we add a little razzle dazzle, spring a little bit something on there to make it so I guess to add something to his character that didn't need to be added, but people felt like, let's add a little elements of Horus, elements of this God, of these gods and these deities, which Christ himself would not have wanted. Christ himself would not want to have been deified. But it's like, well, let's deify him anyway, because we want to make him big and grand and, the life of the party. And if he's God, then people have to worship him. People have to follow him like I follow him. It's not enough for them to just follow and believe his teachings and go to God themselves. They have to make him this grand thing to where this is someone that you worship now. So let's associate that with Horus, with the other gods of the past, because who's going to take us seriously? Who would take us seriously if we don't give them a deification status? That is my theory.
Okay.
That is my theory, and I think it's fair.
I think that part is a fair theory. I actually did a video 6, 7, 8 years ago called Jesus. What I call him? Liar, Legend, Lunatic is what the title of that video is. So, and that basically is talking about the legendizing of a Jesus character, of a real person. Because at that time frame, I thought that there was a historical Jesus, and that he's just a legendized character, that all these things were added to him. So I still would agree that the character of Jesus was legendized. Where we would disagree is the fact that a real Jesus, a real person, ever existed. And I think part of the way you study is you study with a predetermined landing point, and I had to stop doing that. I don't have a predetermined landing point. If you study the Jesus character fully believing already or accepting that he existed as a person, then you're never gonna be able to see the information that sheds light on the fact that this person never existed. We actually don't have anything to prove it other than the Gospels themselves. There's nothing to prove Jesus, and then within the Gospels, they violate history so much that you can tell the stories are made up. But that's pretty much where we are going to land between you and I. You have a predetermined landing spot. I don't. I let the information go, take me wherever it goes. So, but I appreciate you coming
interesting
up.
presupposition.
Yeah. Let me grab a few more people before I get off here.
Sure.
But I appreciate you coming up.
Good one.
I mean, Joseph.
Oh, yeah, no problem. No,
you
all the
say
same.
right. Joseph, not Joseph.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Appreciate it.
Is how
Please
it's
come
called.
back.
Oh yeah, man, always. I enjoy hearing your perspective. It definitely makes me think very, very hard. It takes a lot of energy. And I love it. I actually do. It makes people uncomfortable. And they'll rather argue back and forth about why this and that, why no, I believe. You tell me some things. I'm like, wait, okay, let me go back and study this. Let me go back and research this. Let me go back and double check this and cross-reference my own train of thought, because I could be wrong. And it's not that I don't take the position that I want to be, but because it would be sad if I was, but the more I lose elements of the fables of his character, of who he was, the more not depressing it becomes, but the more kind of like, damn, it's like that.
No, I understand. And
yeah, I know you
be
do.
mindful. If you ever do get to a point where you release Jesus totally, there's a depression that follows for most people. And then you have to work your way through that depression. And some people run right back to it because they don't deal with the depression of it all. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do, is to help people deal with all the situations, the emotional trauma that they will have to deal with when you walk away from this religion, because it's not an easy thing to do. It is a major part of most people's lives, so it's not easy. But let me let you go, man. I appreciate you.
All right, take care.
Take care. Now, I know the first person who was listening, who came on here, is not listening anymore, but that is how you have a civil conversation with someone who believes in Jesus. And hence patience is given instead of a bunch of foolishness. Okay, there's a lot of people on here. Let me see. Well, and of course, I'm sure that most of them accidentally hit it. Guru. Can't. Guru, you there?
Hear me? You hear me?
Okay, that's better. Yeah, I can hear you now. And I know you're over 21.
Okay.
I remember that part. I can't remember if you're a believer or not. Guru?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I wanted to see you got a new prompt up, and the past couple of days have been researching similarities between the one that I don't think you have up there is ISIS and Jesus. And I was researching that, and I guess maybe a century or in some change prior to the story of Jesus, you got ISIS, and I found some similarities just involving like resurrection. And one of my buddies pointed out to me that the way Jesus obviously has his hands out and extended, you'll see some pictures of ISIS also with her hands out and extended with those wings.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered like how you felt about that. And then I think I researched quick. There was like ISIS cult.
Yeah.
Later on down the line, kind of veered into the Jesus quote unquote cult, if you will, just because there were some similarities. And then my buddy said that he started talking about parthenogenesis and Mary, and how if she was to, and if she was a virgin birth or whatever, had the virgin birth, and there was no man involved, no semen or whatever, then the baby would for sure be XX chromosome, which would just be a straight female. So I just want to know, real quick, I don't want to take too much of your time. And I don't believe in to be real, but just in general, like just because I was looking up too, like ruach was like I guess a Greek term for the spirit, which was a feminine grammatical, where then your Holy Trinity would be a Father, Son, and a female, allegedly Holy Spirit type of female grammatical type of a thing, similar to like a Wisdom of Sophia, right, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the hand stretched out part. I have to go and look that up. I do know that there were the religion of people following ISIS, and then they converted to Christianity, especially in Paris, which there are some that say that Paris means para-Isis, which is of ISIS, or for ISIS, and that it was. And when I was in Paris, there are some indications that would make you go lean towards the fact that anciently there was the worship of ISIS, and there was the worship of ISIS in Paris, and it's not even leaning towards it. There was a
Rome too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, all throughout the Mediterranean, there was a worship of ISIS. I don't necessarily put ISIS as a comparison to Jesus, because
name as well too, I think, like Isus, the IESUS, or like ISIS, Isus kind of thing. I was just playing around with that just to see if they had.
Now, I think there's some reaching going on, but
yeah, for sure, most definitely.
Yeah, there's some reaching going on, but now, as far as parthenogenesis is concerned, if that was possible in human beings, which it is absolutely not possible in mammals, period, you're right. It would be a girl. It would be female, because it would only be XX chromosomes. There would be no Y. chromosome there. Now, the reason why they say that there's a Y because the godfather, you know, the male father dude had sex with her in order to impregnate her. But if the Holy Spirit, which in the Greek is ruach, but even in the I can't think of the Hebrew word for it. It is a feminine, it does have feminine use. So the Holy Spirit is akin to wisdom, to motherhood, to the feminine energy. So even if the Holy Spirit has sex with it, it will still be a girl. So I'm with you on that one. Now I just don't even think about it that much because parthenogenesis just is impossible with male mammals. That just can't happen. I know there are a lot of people, especially a lot of women podcasters who are trying to push the narrative. So, and that's just the people who don't want to who hate men. You know, that'd be like the men who hate women. Like I would never, I love women, but so I would never, I try not to be, I do my best to not be misogynist, even though I grew up with some misogyny. But no, there's parthenogenesis is impossible. There is no possible way. This is, and people have known that. This is why even in the Greek stories, the Kemetic story, everybody's stories, there's always a male god who has sex with a female god or a male god who has sex with a female human. And even in the ones where there is a female god, she has sex with a man, with a human man to produce a child. So, and those stories are very rare, but no, this whole birth scenario is just a made up story because everybody else has these miraculous stories, birth stories. Like Apollonius of Tyana, his mother had sex with a sea god, and because she has sex with a sea god, that's why Apollonius has this divinity about him. This is why he can perform his magic tricks, you know, because he's a demigod in the same sense that Jesus is a demigod. So they're going to write that narrative the same way and make Jesus into a demigod as well. But nah, it's all that stuff is a bunch of, I wouldn't put Isis up there as a comparison because she didn't resurrect. She did everything to resurrect her husband, Asar.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
And then, and then she floated over his penis, which was a fake penis, to get pregnant. Like in the most popular story, she floated over his penis to get pregnant. But that's.
Do you think it transitioned from the ISIS cult into the Jesus cult, so to speak? Then, like, do you think they got a lot of their information from? Because to me, when I researched Christianity up until the date, it seems like everything's just been borrowed from, you know, quote unquote paganism. You know, if you will.
Now I think they got most of it from Apollonius, Dionysius, Mithra, and Crestius.
Okay, that's I gotta look up on Apollonius. Some new one for me. I never heard of that one.
Oh, Apollonius of Tyana.
Yeah, never heard of that one. So
yeah. Go back if you you're on TikTok. I was gonna say if you go on my YouTube page or Facebook page, I go through Apollonius of Tyana in the first parts of this video, probably around the 5, 6, 7 minute mark, somewhere around in there. I give a summarized version of Apollonius where he's out of Turkey. He goes to India, study under the Brahmins. He goes to Egypt to study under the Egyptian mystics. He learns the Pythagorean. He studies under the Pythagoreans, and he's very ascetic. He doesn't believe that. He believes in that there's one supreme deity, and that the way to that deity is through your inner morality and your inner knowledge. That you don't give in to praise and worship, prayer, sacrifices, because he's like, no supreme God needs sacrifice, because God doesn't need anything. So why would a God that, you know, which is very hermetic in a sense, when you talk about God not needing anything, so all these rituals and prayers are useless. But he heals he brings a girl back to life. He resurrects a girl. He heals a blind man. He cast out demons from some of his people who are following him, who are in Corinth, and he disappears he's tried by the Roman court, and then he disappears in the middle of the court hearing, and then reappears days later to many of his followers who claim that they saw him reappear to him. So you know, he like, and he was in 15 CE, from like 15 CE to like 50, or no, he died. I think they've got him dying around in the 60s or 70s CE.
Wow.
But he's around during that whole time frame that Jesus supposedly is walking. He's around, and you had early Christian writers wrote about him, never denied his powers, but said that he was utilizing demonic forces in order to heal people and do all these things that he was doing. And his letters were copied by Christian scribes in order to work on their Koine Greek. So the students would copy his letters, and some of them, and they added stuff in the margins. They talked trash about him as well. And Eusebius talked a whole bunch of trash about him. So early Christians believed that he existed. Early Christians believed that he had powers.
That's interesting, and that's what I wanted to tell people too when I talk with them. Like, if they look into like early Christianity, like the Christian writers, they believe in some interesting things that today Christians would be like, "Oh, that's a bunch of malarkey." So,
oh yeah,
like if they really do their studies properly, like, because I know they never read the Bible front to back, whatever translation, they just go off, church stuff. But yeah, if they dig deep into like early Christianity, they'd be surprised how these people thought. And
yeah,
they probably look at them like they was crazy.
Yeah,
that's where it came from. That's the inception, right?
Yeah. One of the fun things I find funny is that if you took somebody like Eusebius, that many Christians lean on Eusebius and Origen and all these people, if you took them, Eusebius and Origen, and you put them in the 1600s, like you had a time machine, you brought them to the 1600s,
right,
they would get tried for witchcraft and heresy, witchcraft or heresy. Definitely get tried for heresy. So the very people they lean on is the people that, for a large part of Christian history, would be seen as heretics because the viewpoint changes.
Yep.
Yes.
Again, that's only if they do the research. They're too much scared to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I challenge every Christian to go back and, a good person to read is Spinoza. Baruch Spinoza.
Spinoza. Okay.
Yeah, Baruch Spinoza. Yeah. That's a good person. He is 16th century, 1600s or 16th century, somewhere back in that time frame. About 350 years ago. So that was so 1600s. And literally how biblical studies are taught in schools today stems from him, and how he studied the Old Testament, studied the New Testament. And of course, he was ostracized he was a Jewish guy. He was ostracized from the Jewish community, the Christian community. And he pretty much had to live in poverty for writing that these Old Testament stories, New Testament stories is a bunch of bullshit and don't historically fit and contradict themselves left and right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely keep that in the back of my head. Take a look at that.
Right.
Apollonius.
Yeah, Apollonius of Tyana is another good study. You're not going to find a full biography on him until around the 250s, 260s, somewhere around in that time frame. But before you have that, you had people like Origen and all these earlier Christians writing about him.
Okay.
Right, which is their writings is how we know about Marcion. We just take out the propaganda. So, but let me get one more person on here before I go, because my wife will be home in like 10 minutes.
I appreciate you, boss.
I appreciate you, Guru. Because y'all know I love y'all, but my wife, I love her more. All right, this is going to be, I'm sure that most of these people are not here anymore. So, Jeffrey, you about to be the last person, Jeffrey. Jeffrey. Jeffrey Jackson. Well, no JJ. Ellie said, that's me with my husband too. That's right. My bride come home. It's time to go. And it's 100 and something degrees here in San Antonio today. So where my garage is normally cooler, it's not today. Dragon.
How's it going, brother?
Pretty good. Are you over 21?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. Are you a believer in the Bible? Oh.
No, I don't believe in it necessarily, but I know where they get it from. I also know where they get the story of Mithra and what they call Nimrod and all those stuff. Same story, all from ancient Kemet. Heru, the original Christ. That's exactly where it comes from. It's pretty much, like I said, an exact translation of that. So, except they call it by different names as Isis in Greek, but her real name is Aset. Same thing with Osiris. His real name is Athar, or who they call Nephthys. Her real name is Nebehet, or Seth, who they actually really call Set, not Seth.
Right. So
that's Greek.
I would give. I wouldn't just give it to the Kemetic.
Connection, really. Say again?
I wouldn't just give it to the Kemetic stories because there are other Mesopotamian motifs that are involved in these stories that predate or is around about the same time frame as the Kemetic stories as well.
Sure, you can say that, but again, it's the same story from ancient Kemet. Period.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that the story of Tamuzi comes from Kemet. And Tamuzi is another name I could have put up here that's similar to Jesus as a resurrected God.
Tammuz, who they have, whatchamacallit, a sun and a moon, goddess, deity, same story. It's
similar stories, yes, but I wouldn't say that they got it from the Egyptians, the Kemetic people. That's all I'm saying. Is that
again, Egypt is a Greek word. I wouldn't use that, but
well,
I see what you're saying,
yeah.
But like I said, I'm gonna stick to it because I've been doing this for quite some time, and I know for a fact that Heru is the Christ, who they call Jesus, or who they call Hercules, or just like the Atlantean. Though the Atlantean he's straight from the Bible too. He's actually called, or who you guys call Hermes in Greek. Hermegistus, or his real name is Megatron, or his real name from the Bible is Enoch. He's the God that never died. He was taken up to the heaven because of his not only perfection, but he understood that past, present, and future existed all at the same time. So he was able to transcend into everybody's. That's where you even get the word thought for thought. He's in everybody's head. He governs your thoughts.
All right. I understand what you're saying. I'm just going to disagree that everything came out of ancient Kemet because we have some of these people were not connected to each other as deeply, and they developed their storylines at relatively the same time. The Sumerian and Akkadian people developed their storylines roughly at the same time frame. Especially with the Akkadians, the Sumerians developed their storyline before the Kemetic. And they're going to have similarities because they're all observing the same natural phenomenon. Now you can.
Again, and it's another copy. It won't matter. Like I said, every religion, even Greek mythology, in anything, ancient legends, you name it, it's all coming from ancient Kemet. And I found a lot of even scriptures. I need to get my binder, but I don't have it with me. But I found even this was found by Bobby Hemmett even, and he found this. He found 14 scriptures of Sar's name in the Bible. He found many of names of Aset's names of scriptures in the Bible. Same with other names.
Okay.
Like Seth. So it's all in there. It's just like
you're
okay. Whatever you want to call it.
I understand your perspective, and I respect your perspective on the fact that there are a lot of things that you can find in the Bible that are similar to the teachings in Kemet. All I'm saying is it's a broader scope. It's a lot more nuances to it than just Kemet. there's a lot more to it than just Kemet. There are storylines that come from other people as well, which I think that we would agree that the Bible is just an amalgamation of a whole bunch of other people's stuff, and that none of it is actually true nor real.
A lot of it is allegory. 90% of it is allegory.
They believe
talking about Kundalini energy. Is talking about
the
alchemy within.
Don't want to go in. I'm not going into the mysticism and all that kind of stuff, because that's something that that's something that people have developed in more recent times, and then they reread into the text what they want in order to make it fit whatever narrative that they're trying to get across. But I got to get off here in a few minutes, so I appreciate you coming up, Dragon.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good one.
Divine Dad.
Let's see. Let me check something real quick here. Okay, I don't have the text from my wife yet, but she be looking at me all funny. Y'all know she starts sending me her little text with the eyeballs and stuff, and then she's telling me, hey. But I think we got to be mindful that we can't, to get stuck on one thing, it then narrows your view. And so you're not able to see like the broader perspective of things. I respect some of the information that Bobby Hemmett puts out. Like I studied, I can't say I technically studied under. I studied from a close far of people, of some archaeologists like John Anthony West. And one of the things I learned from him, you don't get so caught up into your own idea that you can't allow room for other thoughts to come in, because you might be missing some stuff. Right. And oftentimes we miss things because we put blinders on once we get a heading. And I refuse to be that kind of person. But look, there go my wife. She gave me the sign. She's home. So y'all know what that means. Time to get off here. Sorry, I just saw a comment like, Hebrew is Christ, period. That's too dogmatic. It's incredibly too dogmatic. By the time we have the Romans and the development of the Christian storyline, the story's been pulled from so many different perspectives. They're going to be pulling from the perspective that they have at their time at that moment, which is going to be, I could have put Zoroaster up here because Christianity is heavily influenced by, Judaism at that time frame was heavily influenced by the Persians and Zoroastrianism. We already went over Apollonius. It's so many different people whose influences were present at that time frame. Now, do those influences go back further and further and further back to other people? Yes. This is why you can have people like Heru, Dionysus, Mithra. You can have Osiris. You can have Asar on there. You can have Tamuzi in there. So we can find all these different things in there, which makes this Jesus pretty much, somebody said that, I'm not sure copy is the right word. I didn't want to use the word amalgamation. That's the word I originally put in the title before I started this live, was amalgamation. But I didn't want to go here. I'm not trying to say people are dumb, but I didn't want to go through the process of trying to explain amalgamation to multiple people. Copy is a very simple way of putting it. So yeah, anyway, it's the next 3 days is going to be 100 degrees here in San Antonio. That's why I'm a little shiny. So even in the garage where the air conditioning is blowing at full blast, it's a little warm in here. It's a little warm. I know a lot of y'all don't want that storm to come through to turn the tropical storm Bertha. Bertha sounds like one of them names that destroy some shit. But for anybody who's in that pathway, go ahead and take precautions now. Don't get caught by Bertha. All the people on the Gulf Coast, Houston, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, get yourself together. All you San Antonians, y'all know it floods like a champ here. Take care of yourself. No God is going to come down and save you from flooding, from strong winds. You got to protect yourself. So for anybody who's in the pathway of those storms, get yourself together. And, you know, and if you feel it within yourself, make sure y'all, you know, if you want to help the people in Venezuela, help the people in Venezuela. I did a video the other day where people are saying that God is blaming, is God's, the Venezuelan people was worshiping demonic stuff, and that's why God hit them with the 7.5. That's some bullshit. John Anthony West, bro, Bill. John Anthony West was a Egyptologist who was fighting against the Egypt. The I forgot the guy's name. Azawahi was fighting against him to give Egypt back its real history. He's the one who came out with about 30 years ago, was saying that the Sphinx and the pyramids had been around 20 at minimum 13,000 years ago, but pushing it back to 25 to 30,000 years ago, that there were previous civilizations that built it, that the current Egyptians are people, they just found it. But that they had that the Sphinx was around last time that the Sahara Desert was green, which would have been about 13,000 years ago. And 13,000 years ago plus, during the whole last ice age, the Sahara would have been green. And the Sphinx was built during that time frame, and that there was some type of pre-Kemetic civilization that was existing in that region, giving them an older history. So that's one of the main claims of John Anthony West. And so back in the 90s, when I found him, I was like, oh shit, you know, I found that interesting. Wrote letters to him. He responded back with letters. That's why I said I learned a lot from him from close but afar, because back then he did respond to letters. And yes, I'm dating myself by saying that I was writing letters. We didn't have email. Well, email came out not too long after. My man, John Henry, thank you for the super chat. Whistle red blow. Look, y'all, I'm about to get in trouble. I'm about to get in trouble. Thank you for the super chat, John. There is no God, period. We were born into conflict, not sin. I agree with that 100%. There is no God. There is absolutely no proof of a God. None exists. We were just born into a conflicted world, not a sinful world, because what some people call a sin today was not a sin 300 years ago. So the world is just whatever we decide to make the world. If we decide that we want to make the world a great place, the world will be a great place. Will we ever defeat nature? In some areas, we already have. In some areas, we may in the future. But we haven't fully. So we're not born into sin, right? You're just born into a world that has conflicting moralities and conflicting cultures. And through those conflicts, we have issues. So there's that part. And tomorrow we're either going to do none of the Old Testament, none of the historical things of the Old Testament happen. And we always go off track a little bit. Or we'll do that Jesus and all the New Testament stuff is bullshit. Right? Because there's zero archaeological evidence of 99% of any of the things that are in the Bible. Right? Didn't happen. And somebody's going to bring up Ron Wyatt. Somebody's going to bring up the Shroud of Turin. And it'll all fall short. If there's other subject matters you guys like to talk about more specifically, just I put my email is in. Just DM me, email me. I put my email in the chat on Facebook and YouTube. TikTok, I don't know, send me a message. But y'all have a great day. Now, mind you, I get about 50, 60 messages a day per platform. So if I don't see it immediately, I'll eventually see it. So y'all have a great day. And always remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. I'm coming home, wifey. I'm coming home.